You can't heal her with words, but she'll remember your distance. That's the reality most men don't realize until it's too late. You see, apologies are easy. Anyone can say, "I'm sorry." Those words come fast, often in panic, guilt, or fear of losing someone. But what they lack is the asterisk weight asterisk, the asterisk impact asterisk, that makes someone truly stop and feel your value. And when a woman has grown used to hearing you apologize over and over, she doesn't hear your heart anymore. She hears a routine, and routines never spark emotion. They never shake someone to their core. They never make her stop and think, what if he's really gone this time? When a woman is hurt, disappointed, or emotionally distant, most men immediately rush in with explanations, pleas, and confessions. They pour out their emotions, trying to fix the situation with words. But here's the truth: healing doesn't always come through conversation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer isn't an apology. It's your absence, your silence. Your decision to walk away, not because you're angry or playing games, but because you finally recognize your value. You understand that you're not going to beg to be understood anymore. You're not going to convince someone to see your worth. You're going to show them what it feels like to live without it, because absence does what presence never can. It creates space for reflection. It forces a woman to sit with her own choices, her own reactions, and the empty space you once filled with consistency, attention, care. When you're always there, apologizing, explaining, trying to make her feel better, you're robbing her of the one thing that can truly make her see your worth, the experience of your absence. The silence that follows your departure is louder than any sorry ever will be. And this isn't about punishment. It's not about emotional manipulation. It's about boundaries. It's about maturity. It's about knowing that a man who constantly offers apologies without action is not strong, he's available, desperate, predictable. But a man who removes his presence when he feels disrespected, unloved, or emotionally drained, that man is unforgettable. His energy lingers in the places he no longer stands. His absence becomes a mirror that shows her exactly what she took for granted. In that silence, she will begin to remember not just what you did, but what it felt like to have you around. The way you showed up, the way you made her feel secure, the way you gave your energy without hesitation. And suddenly, that silence will scream, not because you're being cold, but because you're no longer trying to be heard through noise. Let her feel your absence. Let her sit in that quiet. Because if your presence didn't teach her, maybe your distance will. Apologies fix mistakes. Absence fixes patterns. That's something most men overlook when they're caught in the cycle of constantly saying, "I'm sorry." You hurt her feelings. You apologize, she gets distant. You chase and explain. But what happens when this cycle repeats over and over? The words lose their meaning. The apology becomes expected. And instead of healing the relationship, you're feeding a pattern that never changes. That's why stepping away, choosing absence over constant reassurance, has the power to shift everything. When a woman gets used to your "I'm sorry," it becomes a button she can press. There's no growth, no reflection, just reaction. You wrong her, she reacts. You apologize, she forgives. And then it happens all over again. It becomes a loop where no one actually learns, no one truly grows. But when you remove yourself from that loop, when you stop repeating the same lines and start creating space, that's when transformation begins. Because a mistake followed by a routine apology teaches nothing, but a mistake followed by silence, by distance, by absence. That teaches awareness. Absence creates pressure. The good kind, the kind that forces someone to think. To sit in the silence and ask themselves, Why did he stop reaching out? Why did he go quiet? What have I been doing in this relationship that's making him pull away instead of come closer? And that right there, that moment of questioning, is where the pattern starts to shift. That moment doesn't come from a text message. It doesn't come from flowers and a tearful "I'm sorry." It comes from asterisk asterisk space. Asterisk asterisk, you see, a real man doesn't just apologize, he reflects. He decides whether he's correcting a single mistake or enabling a damaging pattern. And if it's the latter, he understands that fixing the situation isn't about words, it's about action. And sometimes the strongest action is asterisk, walking away asterisk, not slamming the door, not ghosting out of anger, but stepping back with clarity. Because when you step back, you give both of you the chance to see things from the outside, to feel the absence and what it truly means. And for her, that absence isn't just loneliness, it's contrast. It's the realization of what it felt like when you were fully present. The late night talks, the way you listened, the way you tried even when things were hard. That space where you once stood now feels empty. And it's not an emptiness another man can quickly fill. Because you weren't just another guy. You were asterisk her asterisk guy. And now you're gone. Not because you didn't care, but because caring wasn't changing anything anymore. That's when she starts to understand that your absence isn't punishment, it's a lesson. One that teaches what your presence never could. That you're not here to be taken for granted. That you're not a man who repeats cycles. You're a man who breaks them, even if it means walking away. Let the silence speak where words failed. Let the distance rewrite the pattern she thought would never end. She'll feel it when you're no longer there to fix everything. That's the moment that shifts everything, not your long texts, not your emotional apologies, but your quiet decision to stop showing up for someone who stopped appreciating your presence. Because when you're always the one to repair the damage, carry the emotional weight, or hold the relationship together, you become invisible not in body, but in value. She knows you'll be there, she assumes you'll respond, and she counts on your support even when she stops giving you hers. But when you decide to step back, when you let go of the urge to fix, to chase, to explain, that's when she finally begins to feel your worth. A man who's always available loses his mystery. A man who always forgives loses his boundaries. And a man who's always fixing things becomes the emotional janitor in a one-sided relationship. You patch the holes, smooth over the tension, and cushion her fall, even when she's the one who pushed you. And in doing so, you train her to expect your loyalty, even when she stops offering hers. That's why your absence becomes so loud. Because it creates a silence she never prepared for, a space where your reliability once lived, and now it's gone. The moment you stop trying to fix everything is the moment she has to face the mess without you. She'll reach for the phone, expecting you to check in. She'll scroll through old messages, expecting to find comfort in your words, but what she won't find is you. Your effort, your reassurance, your dependable care vanished, and that emptiness doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like loss, not just the loss of a person, but the loss of someone who asterisk showed up asterisk day after day, even when he was tired, hurt, or unappreciated. That's when it hits her that the man who once made things feel safe is no longer in reach, and suddenly the little things she overlooked start to matter. The way you listened when no one else did, the way you stayed calm when things got hard, the way you apologized first, even when it wasn't your fault. She begins to realize that love doesn't always scream. It often shows up in the quiet, consistent ways. And when that kind of love disappears, it leaves behind a silence that echoes deeper than any argument ever could. You see, It's easy for her to be frustrated with you when she knows you'll come back. It's easy to dismiss your feelings when she knows you'll explain them again tomorrow. But when you walk away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, she finally has to sit with herself. No rescuer, no fixer, just her and the reflection of what she let go. That's the power of absence. It makes her feel what she refused to see. And in that space, she starts to remember not just the man you were, but the peace you brought, the strength you held, and the love you gave without conditions. Let her feel that silence. Let it speak the truth she once ignored. If you always apologize, you become predictable. And predictability kills desire. It's a quiet truth most men don't realize until they're deep in a cycle where they're always explaining, always chasing, always trying to smooth things over. And in doing so, they become easy to figure out, emotionally exposed, endlessly available, and ultimately unchallenging. But here's the thing, desire doesn't live in comfort, it lives in contrast. It's born from uncertainty, tension, mystery. The very things that die the moment you become the man who's always trying to make everything right with words alone. You might think you're being mature, being emotionally intelligent, being kind, and yes, in many ways you are. But when you start offering endless apologies every time she pulls away, every time there's friction, or even when nothing is your fault, you're not building love, you're breaking attraction. You're telling her, without realizing it, that you'll do anything to keep the peace, even at the cost of your self-respect. And once she learns your pattern, she no longer feels the emotional pull toward you. Why? Because you're predictable. And predictability doesn't inspire curiosity. It doesn't keep her up at night thinking about you. It doesn't make her wonder if she's losing something valuable. That's the role absence plays. It disrupts the routine. It adds uncertainty. When you stop showing up in the same way, when you don't follow the script, when you don't instantly say sorry just to avoid tension suddenly, you become unpredictable again. You become someone she can't quite figure out, and that mystery is what draws her in. Not because you're playing games, but because you're finally stepping out of the emotional cycle that made you too easy to read. Too easy to dismiss. Masculine energy thrives in purpose, not people. Pleasing. When you center your actions around trying to keep her comfortable at all costs, you lose your edge. And when you lose your edge, you lose her attention. Women are not drawn to weakness masked as emotional expression. They are drawn to strength that expresses itself with control. And sometimes that strength looks like pulling back. Not out of anger, but out of awareness. You're not chasing, you're observing, you're not begging, you're deciding. When she sees you no longer react the same way, when she notices you're not falling over yourself to apologize for every emotional wave, she starts paying attention. She starts wondering why the man who always reached out isn't calling, why the man who used to explain everything is suddenly quiet. And that curiosity, that tension, that's desire waking back up. That's the emotional gravity that makes her think twice. That's what makes her feel your presence in your absence. Let her sit in that unfamiliar space. Let her wonder. Because the man she could once predict has now become someone she has to pursue to understand. And that's a far more powerful position than being the one who always says, "I'm sorry," hoping she'll stay. Your absence isn't about punishment, it's about peace. That's the part most people won't understand, and frankly, you don't need them to. You're not stepping back to cause pain. You're not walking away to play mind games or spark guilt. You're doing it because there comes a point in every man's journey when he realizes that protecting his peace is more important than proving his point. That's not weakness, it's maturity, and in love, that kind of maturity is rare, especially when you've been the one always trying to hold it all together. There's a quiet strength in no longer needing to be heard in every moment, in no longer feeling obligated to fix what someone else keeps breaking. When you withdraw, you're not disappearing. You're choosing not to fight battles that drain your soul. You're no longer arguing for your worth. You're no longer chasing someone to see what they once felt lucky to have. You're walking away from the noise, from the emotional highs and lows that kept you up at night, and you're walking into something far more valuable: clarity. You see, when you've always been the emotional stabilizer, the one who offers reassurance, the one who bends and sacrifices and shows up regardless of how you're treated, people get used to it. They mistake your consistency for something owed, not something offered, and once they feel entitled to it, they stop respecting it. They stop respecting you asterisk. That's why absence becomes necessary, not to manipulate her, but to remind her that your love was a gift, not a guarantee. That your presence was peace, and now that it's gone, the silence feels heavier than the words you used to pour out. And this is where the deeper truth unfolds. Your absence starts doing what your presence couldn't. It starts revealing how much emotional stability you brought into her world. The moments you diffused tension, the way you made her feel seen, secure, understood, and now, without you, she's left to sit with herself, and that's not always a comfortable place to be. But it's in that silence where realization takes root, not from shouting, not from begging, just silence. Absence, distance, peace doesn't always look like smiling and moving on. Sometimes peace looks like stepping back with a heavy heart and saying, I can't keep losing myself while trying to love you. That's not weakness. That's self-respect. And when a man chooses self-respect, it creates a gravity that's felt even in his silence. She'll feel it in the moments she reaches for you and finds nothing but empty air, in the spaces where your messages used to light up her phone, in the quiet where your love used to live. That's when she'll understand. You didn't leave to cause hurt. You left to protect the one thing you could still control, your peace. And that peace, it's the most powerful message of all, because now she doesn't hear your apology. She hears your absence. And that speaks louder than anything you could have said.